Hey everybody, this is Savage with Variant Rules, and I'm here with Ginger, Rack, Ro, and Xander. We are the players of the campaign. We're here to talk a little bit about the reasons why we swapped to Pathfinder 2e, what we enjoy, um, you know, that nature. I'm gonna go over like real quick my experience. I've only been playing TTRPGs for a little over a year. I didn't play any, but I met these guys. They were playing 5th edition and got kind of sucked into it. It seemed fun and interesting, so I started playing with them. Uh, why did we swap to Pathfinder 2e? Because our GM is a tyrannical asshole and made me learn 5th edition for about 3 months and then just decided, hey, I want to try this Pathfinder thing. And we all kind of were not too excited about it. But the more and more we looked into it, it seemed fun and right up our alley. Seemed like a lot of customization, a lot of tactical like combat to it and stuff like that. So we really enjoyed it. So real quick, I'm just gonna ask everybody like their experience in TTRPGs and see what their favorite character was that they have built and what edition they did that in. I'm gonna start with Ginger.
Hi, I'm Ginger. I've been playing TTRPGs since late 2019. Started off in 5e after I met Zale and Rack in the group for the first time, and just kind of hit it off and decided to try this TTRPG thing, and it was a lot of fun. Zale's an excellent GM, and just kind of like brought us into the worlds. Um, I enjoyed 5e for what it was, but as time grew on, we started to crave, at least me personally, started to crave a more robust system, with a bit more complexity and character choice. Um, and 5e just didn't provide that for me. Rules as written. So before we even considered changing systems, we had homebrewed 5e to the point where it basically just wasn't recognizable as 5e anymore. And until we started like stumbled across Pathfinder Second Edition, and it was everything that we wanted from 5e and then some. More complex rules systems, a more complex combat system, especially way more character choice and better. The best thing is um, more rules to allow characters to do things that you would have to make up on the fly at 5e.
And what was your favorite character you built so far?
My favorite character, um, it'd probably have to be Stokes. He was a hobgoblin fighter champion because we use dual class rules. They're variant rules, and he basically was built to stop the enemies from having fun.
Yeah,
And to let my teammates just clown on them, and it worked flawlessly.
he hooked me up with quite a few crits. All right, Rack, your turn.
Yeah, hey, I'm Rack. I've been playing tabletop RPGs for a little over 18 years now. I started when I was really young with 3rd edition, and ever since then, I've been hooked to playing any sort of RPG. I would have to say 5e for what it was really fun. That's how I met Zale and the rest of this group playing 5e, and there are a little bit more, I feel, fleshed out rule sets that benefit us in Pathfinder 2e compared to 5e. Both systems are, good for what they are. It suits our needs better with the 2nd edition. And my favorite character that I played in 5e was the Divination Wizard. And for Pathfinder 2e, I would have to say it was Gunslinger Magus that I played. That I enjoyed.
That dude was ridiculous.
I think that was the first time I actually min-max instead of just memeing my way through. Just making something out of, just pure concept and trying to just do something that shouldn't work.
I gotcha. Okay. Ro, you're up.
What's up, guys? I'm Ro. I have been playing TTRPGs for about 2 years now. I came into the group just a couple months ahead of Savage. I also only played very little before this. Me and my roommates played like a little homebrew session. We played like 4 sessions of like a very homebrewed system that was kind of based on 5e, but not actually 5e. Uh, And then in 5e, I played 3 different characters, I think to level 7, level 3, and level 4. And it was fun, but I think I agree with Ginger of like, there was, in 5e, when I created a class, it felt like there was a lot of things that I had to like generalize, or I couldn't specialize as much with. And now in 2e, coming over to 2e, and we just finished our first big campaign in 2e all the way up to 17, and that felt a lot more kind of what I wanted in my characters, and so I really enjoyed 2e for that aspect of just the amount. I would say the amount of choice you have and like agency over your like character creation and build. As an MMO player, an RPG player, like it just feels really good in Pathfinder over 5e.
And favorite character you built?
I would have to say my favorite character I built is actually one that I haven't been able to play yet. Me and Zale just kind of shopped it up one night, and it is a Rune Lord wizard and Twisting Tree Magus. And it's like a scythe. Instead of like a spell sword, it's like a spell scythe kind of character. And the aesthetic was really cool, and the feats and stuff were also really cool, and I'm very excited to play her.
Edgy as fuck, boy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, super edgy character, but I can't wait to play her whenever we get around to our Fate campaigns.
Absolutely ridiculous damage output too.
Yeah, it was nuts. And she's inventor, so the scythe is like her invention too.
Wow.
Oh,
How much edge do you have, my dude?
a lot of edge. But that I played, I think it would have to be Rolani. I'm a very big like elemental power kind of guy, and he was a elemental bloodline sorcerer with elementals archetype. He was probably as close as you can get to like what Kineticist is now without actually Kineticist. So I really enjoyed him.
Nice. And Xander, you're up.
All right. Well, I'm Xander, and I started with TTRPGs about the same time Ginger did, about late 2019. I played exactly 1 session of something. I honestly couldn't even tell you what edition we were playing because I have no idea. But it was D&D. It might have been 3rd edition. I'm not sure. Back in 2016 when I was still in high school with a bunch of friends. It was a great time. We went like 6 hours. It was absolute insanity. Crazy RP. There was a halfling with soiled underwear on his head that became like a running gag for the longest time. But anyway, I digress.
I can't get that
my
image.
train of thought now.
I can't get that image out of my head now.
Oh, it was bad.
The halfling train left the station. You weren't on it.
The underwear got to him, dude.
My character was full on, like, actually trying to kill this other character, too. No one knew it, but I was like, can I try to shoot the underwear off his head? DM's like, you're probably going to hit him. And I'm like, I'm aware of this.
PvP.
I was hiding in a tree, man. I was hiding in a tree. They had no idea it was there.
Gotta watch out for you. Jeez.
But yeah, like, as for 5e, that was where I really kind of got my proper start with TTRPGs, and it was a great time. Had tons of fun with it. It was a really good kind of intro to the genre. Yeah, I was really kind of able to figure out how things work because I came in with virtually no experience of TTRPGs at all. Yeah.
All right, and then what's your favorite character that you've built?
Favorite character would definitely have to be Arno Shade, my Ranger Fighter Rogue, ridiculous multi-class from 5e. I put so much effort into the backstory for this character, and Zale, our game master, really let that shine by throwing in some his own little tricks. And basically Hawkeye from the Avengers. I kid you not. This guy could hit anything from 600 feet away. It was fantastic. And as for Pathfinder2e build, I actually remade my Arno build in Pathfinder2e, which I've been able to very faithfully kind of duplicate that in Pathfinder in actually even funner ways. So I haven't had a chance to play Arno in 2e yet, but I'm really looking forward to the day when I can properly realize that character in Pathfinder.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah, we gotta get the squad back together, man.
Also, because it got brought up a minute ago about PvP, we've actually off stream and for a little while there, we played with doing arena matches and a battle royale with Pathfinder, and it's actually pretty decently well balanced. We had some really good matches and it was fun, and it was something that we were kind of thinking about on doing on stream. So for any of you guys listening, if you guys would be interested in watching or perhaps even participating in some arena fights, let us know down in the comments. That'd be awesome. So now I just wanted to ask you guys, when we swapped and went into Pathfinder and we were kind of learning this thing, what were the things in the system that, like, because we were all kind of like at the beginning there, but what, when you were looking into it and researching it, what did, like, pulled you over to the side of like, this seems fun, this seems interesting, I like this, or got you hyped to move over? Ginger.
Probably the first thing was I'm a big rules guy, right? I'm our group's resident rules lawyer. If the GM doesn't know it, odds are I do.
He's a snitch. He's a snitch, everybody.
I am a 100% impartial rules lawyer. Thank you very much. I have fucked over the party just as many times as I've fucked over Zale. So,
oh, hey, Savage, that crit that shot
almost got someone killed.
It doesn't count.
Yes, I have. I've almost gotten someone killed because I rules lawyered. So,
like, oh yeah, about that. You're close call, not so close. Here's 2 death saves.
The rules lawyer likes the extra rules. Who would have thought?
Yeah. So, like the sheer number of rules was a bit daunting at first, even for someone like me. However, the more I read into it, the more like the rules just make sense. Yeah, there's a lot of them, but at the same time, like a lot of the way the rules are written and the way certain mechanics and interactions work is just kind of common sense. And so like it became like fairly easy for me to memorize stuff at that point. And then I'd say probably like a secondary thing for me was the 3 action economy. When basically coming from 5e, where it's got just, you have a move action, a attack or an action, and a bonus action on your turn. There's a lot of times, like, if you weren't playing a very specific kind of character, you just would never get to use a bonus action. And to me, that just didn't feel good. Because like the other thing too is every turn just got to feel kind of samey, where you just move, attack as many times as you can, and you're done. That's pretty much all you can do. versus 2e, there's just so many options that you can use your actions for. You can stride multiple times a turn, just move a lot, or you can stand still and hit something 3 times. Not recommended, but you can do that. And then there's a multitude of other things you can do, grabbing,
Like
demoralizing, disarming,
disarming a
weak,
15-foot reach scythe, so he can't smack me anymore.
yeah, like
Yes.
taking a glaive away from a giant skeleton and throwing it across the room. And there's rules for that in Pathfinder 2e. Whereas in 5e, something like that would be like the GM would have to come up with a ruling on the spot. So like that's
also just to continue with the movement thing for Pathfinder, like Ginger said, you can take your full like 3 actions to move, and anybody can do that. The only way to get that kind of mobility in 5e is if you're a rogue or something, and you can have I can't remember what it's called, but you'd use your bonus action,
cunning action,
to run, right?
Yep.
So then, and that was the only way that you could get like I can move real far, real fast.
Rogues
Right.
and monks. Rogues, because they could move their natural movement speed 3 times in a turn by moving, dashing, and then cunning action, dashing. And then monks can do that too with Step of the Wind, but they have to spend key points. But monks also just get insane amounts of movement speed, which that's another thing. Like
they do in 2e as well.
They do, but like in 2e overall,
everybody has the option to haul ass.
Yeah,
exactly. And then
some
on top
just
of that,
are better at it than others.
Yeah, but on top of that too, fights typically are more like closer, more intimate affairs than they can be in 5e. In 5e, sometimes like if you have a monk character in your 5e party, your GM has to make maps absolutely massive just to let the monk do everything that the monk can do. That or the monk just never gets to use all of their movement.
Imagine how I felt with a 600-foot firing range with a bow.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost ended a boss fight by killing the boss before he could summon his big bad thing, because I literally almost got line of sight before he could finish the summon. And I could hit him from across this massive map because of shenanigans where like cover didn't matter. And like other stuff like that. So I almost ended a fight before the boss could actually show up.
What level were you when you did that? Because I know,
not very.
I was gonna say you could do something like that in 2e, but you'd have to be a level 20 ranger, I believe, and then their range is like ridiculous.
Actually, you don't actually have to be level 20 ranger. There's ways to get it at a lower level. It just wouldn't be quite as ridiculous. But I think I was level 15 or 20 in 5e when I did that as Arno.
It was probably around
like,
level 16. I know what you're talking about. It was probably
but I
around
didn't
level
have
16.
to be that high a level. I think I had like the sharpshooter thing, which made it the 600-foot range at like level 5, right? So I was shooting that far from the very beginning. It's just that at level 20 or whenever that boss fight was happening, it was virtually impossible for me to miss because I had like a plus 22 to my attack.
Yeah.
And in 5e, your AC almost never hits very much over 20, right? Like 22, 20. Like if you hit like a 24 AC, like that's ridiculous. And that's like stacking up buffs. So it's like, yeah, with a plus 20 to hit,
I think the theoretical
unless I rolled a
maximum
1,
AC is like 29.
Yeah, something like that. But it's like still like unless I, with a 22 to hit, unless I roll a 7 or lower than a 7, I will hit you.
Yeah.
And that's if you have the theoretical maximum, right? So like Arno never missed unless I like nat 1'd it.
Yeah.
And in 2e, that like everything kind of scales up, so there's still difficulty as you go.
Yeah, like you're never gonna be like you're never gonna get to the point where you're just like clowning on everything around you.
Unless they're much lower level than you.
Yeah.
Well, not much, but just lower level than you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they need to be like 3 levels under you for you to be just clowning on them. Yeah, we got kind of on a
Yeah,
tangent
I was
there.
gonna say, hey, Rack, what were the things that got you excited about Pathfinder when we decided to
So
swap?
when we did the first swap, it was kind of an adjustment period coming from the regular action economy over from 5e to second edition. I think what kind of won me over for second edition for 2e for Pathfinder was probably the magic system, because in 5e they really did limited what spells were available for casters, coming from some like third edition, where you had a massive book with a spell for almost every situation. Like they really did trim that down, and the seeing that in 2e for Pathfinder, having a nice selection and being able to think ahead of time and pre-plan. I'm one of those players. I just like playing casters. I've played casters for a very long time. Besides, like my early days in third edition when I was playing
Your
fighter
mic is so in and out, bro.
I'm sorry, bro. Besides my, the playing a half orc fighter, so that was like early on. I swapped over to casters. Loved it ever since.
And then
he just has more ways to meme. That's all.
Yeah, that's true. And Ro, like me, you were pretty still new to it. So like when we were doing the swap, what got you ready and interested to do it?
Like you said, like you, I was like, oh, dude, like I was kind of like at the phase where I'm at now in Pathfinder, where like I had just started to get 5e enough to like theory craft characters, and I had a couple 5e characters in the bag, and then
we were addicted. Like as soon as we started, like we were building characters every day. Like we were so excited to play.
Yeah, and it just I was like, oh, this is gonna be so awesome and stuff, and then we switched to Pathfinder, and I was like, oh shit, like now, like what look at all my character queue. I have like 6 characters here. What am I gonna do with them now? Like, and also, I also had that problem in the beginning. If you guys remember, of like the range of magic is so much. Even though it's like much more complex and stuff, the range of magic is like really like
it was a major change of pace. I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah, like the range of magic is much shorter in Pathfinder, and that like really messed with my character's build. Like in the middle, because we switched in the middle of a campaign. Well, not really in the middle, but kind of like towards like we were like level 7. And my character was like a spell sniper, like warlock sorcerer build, and it felt so shitty, like going to be like eldritch blasting people from like 300 feet away to like your longest spell is like 60 feet, by the way. And it's just like I was just like, oh, okay, and I just like winded up being like a mud pit bot for like the first like couple levels of Pathfinder, and I really didn't like it.
Yeah, man, you had like a crisis of faith, man. You were like, you were in such a dark place for a while there. Like
I was like, this is so shitty. I was like, this is just the worst I've ever like. I like, why have we switched to this? I was like, this is so bad. And then I just kind of like realized like what some of those spells were actually doing. And just kind of like formulated. I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna have to like reformulate a plan. And I just like started playing like that more strategical, just like dropping AoEs, like fucking up fights, like letting, you know what I mean? And sometimes I would fuck it up good for the enemies, but sometimes I would fuck it up for us as a party until I figured it out.
I mean, I had 0 issues. I was fine.
Yeah, dude with this sniper rifle from across the map.
My sniper buddy didn't have any problems, but when I was doing an elemental annihilation wave, and I said, "Okay, you guys have a round to get away," like, that was
a problem for me. So
that was kind of my toughest hurdle. Was like it was just that, like, it really fucked my character in the beginning.
And that's one thing like that's really different about PF2e as well is the casters have much more of a focus on utility than they do in 5e and Pathfinder. because like in 5e, it's really easy if you just make a blaster. You can just like grab the right spells and just go ham. Whereas in Pathfinder, it's more like um, there are a few spells, like quite a few spells that deal damage.
Yeah, you can do a lot of damage, but you need a lot of setup in Pathfinder, and so
it's way more setup. You need your teammates to be on board with you to not be in your way, so you can really light up the battlefield and stuff like that. And it comes down to like that party synergy, that working together, that teamwork ethic. And so like and a lot of it's communication as well as like I need everyone to kind of like hang back for a second so I can do this thing. And that took some adjustment for us because in 5e, casters could just throw out an AOE and yeah, it would hurt, but most spells were like you either take full damage or you take half damage unless you have evasion if you're a monk or a rogue. And then you can negate all of it. Whereas in Pathfinder, it's so much more dangerous to do that kind of thing because of the plus minus 10 crit rules. Where if you fail to save by more than 10, well, you're taking double damage there, but
as
likewise,
well as some other likely gifts as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, that also adds a lot more to casters in this game because of the fact that most spells have a wider range of effects based on crits versus normal successes and stuff like that. I feel like casters are just more interesting.
I would.
Yeah, like Jess's bird lady. That lady was a nightmare. She was awesome.
I mean, yeah. Being semi-triggered, like I would say, casters in both have to deal with people knowing when to hold back for a couple, like just a turn or two, in both editions, both in 5e and 2nd edition Pathfinder. I don't know. I might be the weird one. I always played more of the control the battlefield kind of like wizard, not like just a master blaster. Like don't get me wrong, I had some blasting spells, but it was more of a let's see how I can just turn the battlefield into our favor kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that was the problem for me. Is like I was a very like master blaster class, and I took the long range like whatever the warlock things were. Evocations or whatever they were, and I took all the the big Eldritch Blast is long and it slows people and it fucking, and so going into
like
I said, it went from I was blasting to hey, you have like less than a third of your range. By the way, have fun.
You gotta start thinking like 8 steps ahead.
Yeah, and that was the thing. It was like
way more aware.
It was so hard to like really set up and get those big and that is another thing that I kind of regret is like there was a lot of times where like I just didn't have the time, like where the battlefield didn't shake out the way I needed to, and I could never really get those moments where I had an elemental zone out and I had my 1 AOE, my 2 AOE, and I set everything off, and I got it like maybe once or twice, but.
I don't know, man. There was some of those fights at the end during.
In the beginning it was like that, but later on,
the mid-level fights or like just above level 10, there was a few of those battles where you just kind of like you decimated people, like.
Yeah, I started doing damage towards the end, but like the problem was, like I said, I didn't have that cool like big setup a lot of times, and that's what really like that was the biggest problem for me. But like I said, I think I adapted to the new playstyle more, and I think now, like that I know so much more about like Pathfinder, I would have built that a lot better because now I know like there is stuff for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you always have to be thinking ahead, at least in my opinion, when playing a caster, especially with the limited range on stuff, you have to be thinking multiple steps in advance just to
also,
do something well.
Also, too, in the little bit that I did play 5e, I like because you would have the range that you had, we didn't really super need to like worry about you. But then once we got into 2e, the range was shorter, so you were actually a pretty easy target for them to get to. They might have to blow like 2 strides or something like that to get to you, but they could get to you a lot easier. So we had to focus more on protecting you to allow you to do what you were doing, which just made it less of I attack, and then next turn do the same thing again, and more of okay, I'm gonna trip this dude, and then I'm gonna grapple him. Like you're free to go hit him next time, or so. You know what I mean? Like it makes the combat more dynamic, and you sure you can herd her right through everything, but it's probably not gonna end it as well.
Yeah, that was another thing, especially in the beginning. Was like I was like, what is the point of being a caster? Like you have to get into melee range. Like I was like it really annoyed me in the beginning about Pathfinder, but I think what my biggest mistake was I tried to exactly recreate the 5e character, and it just didn't work. Like it winded up like the things that I picked that I thought matched aesthetically winded up being that like control mage build rather than the blaster build, and I didn't know how to.
Yeah, that was like when we were in 5e. I was going to build my monk druid because I was new to TTRPG. I felt like I was just gonna screw up a lot. So I wanted those extra health, those health bars by switching in and out of forms. Because the way I understood it, if you go into bear form and then you take a bunch of damage, once you come out of it, you're back to full health in your human form. So I wanted that safety net. And then once we go into 2e, that's not how it works. You only get a little bit of temporary HP, and it was completely different. And I was just like, oh man, I'm not too stoked on this. But again, it was the lack of like understanding, and it's like this doesn't work like this. This seems better. But once you actually get into it and you kind of more understand the game, it's just as fun.
I will say, like specifically talking about the druid wild shape stuff in 5e, it definitely was stronger than it is in Pathfinder. Yeah. That's for damn sure. But that was more of a problem than it was a good thing. Because
I understand
druids
that
were basically unkillable in 5e.
Yeah, and as a noob, that I was all here. I was there for it. You know what I mean? But I understand how that seems broken as hell.
Mm-hmm. I would say the wild shapes in PF2e is just as strong, but it isn't like on the.
Yeah, it's just different. I agree.
It's just a little different.
I'm playing on this new campaign. I'm playing
less survivability, but I would argue there's less survivability, but there's also you get a bit more damage out of it in Pathfinder because you take on the physical aspects of the thing you shape into, and a lot of those a lot of your wild shape forms can be pretty devastating physically.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna move on to Xander and ask him, what got you excited about 2e when we spawned?
So in the very beginning, I wasn't super excited actually. Mainly because I only knew the 5e rule set. I was kind of like Ro when I hit the point where I was just starting to kind of theory craft builds, and when I saw all the rules that would be involved in Pathfinder, I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. But of course, GM will be GM and goes like, hey, we're going to do this now. And I'm like, all right, here we go. So luckily I was introduced to some character builder apps, like Path Builder and stuff like that, which really helped out because it essentially gave me a bit of a helping hand in understanding what things happen at what levels, what that means, descriptions. Essentially I had a resource that I could use to kind of help with that. And it also didn't help that the first character I made in Pathfinder was using the Inventor playtest, but
Yeah.
I read the playtest. It sounded interesting, so I picked it. But anyway, because again, I was like Ro, I was trying to duplicate a 5e character in Pathfinder. But instead of trying to make my character Jordy be exactly the same, I just kind of went with the same theme I was going for with Jordy, which was more because in 5e it was like the psychic warrior fighter archetype, whatever it was called. So it was like using magic, but in kind of like defensive ways and stuff like that. And I was theming it as, instead of magic, it was more like technological advancement. So of course, inventor class is perfect for that because that's exactly what it does. But yeah, so like it took a while to kind of get it to work the way I wanted it to, but the Path Builder apps and stuff really helped with that. And once you kind of get your feet wet and kind of understand what's going on, the magic rules are nicer. Having like the 3-action economy is simpler in that kind of regard, where like basically you have the same economy as everything else in the game. Like enemies all have to follow the same economy as well. So it kind of balances things a little better that way as well.
Yeah. And then for me, like I had said before, I was playing 5e for like 3 months, and then my tyrannical dictator told me we were moving to a different system, and I was just like, "What the fuck?" Dude? Like, this is the honeymoon phase for me in TTRPGs. I was opened up to a whole new world. I was having a blast. I couldn't wait to build this character and that character and this character. Looking at everything, trying to learn the system. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but there's very little resources because I didn't have the money to sit there and like buy all the books and everything like that, but I wanted to play with my friends. So in order for me to learn, there were not a whole lot of like easy to use resources. And then the one that I was using a lot was getting hit on by a certain company that wasn't too happy about them. So that sometimes the site would be down, you wouldn't be able to use it. And but when we were making the change, I was looking at the comparisons, and I was just like, well, it seems way funner here on the 5e side, because I understood it, and I at least understood that character that I was building. But then once we looked into it, and for a separate campaign, I started building from a homebrew class that somebody made called, I think it was Magus. It might be something else. But basically, it was a heavy armored, Magus in 5e, and I was super stoked about that guy's like character, his flavor, like making that character. And I had what was so hyped. I was about to make like 3 different versions of him in 3 different campaigns, and I noticed that they didn't have nothing like that in Pathfinder, and I was just like, oh man, I was really bummed out. But then, what was it? Secrets of Magic? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, Secrets of Magic came out.
Secrets of Magic came out like I think a week later, or at least was announced like a week later, and they had they straight up had a Magus in the rules, and I was started looking at it, and I was super excited. So I was like, okay, so I build that guy up. I ended up changing my monk druid to a monk Magus, and had a blast. Is an orc monk Magus, my favorite character so far. And once I learned like how to play it and what the rules were and all the cool things, I mean, my guy can straight up go Super Saiyan. Like, there's literally ability in Pathfinder. It even says your hair color changes, like you get an aura. You're straight up Super Saiyan. It is so cool. And so once we got like Xander had said, once we dipped our toes in, learned the rules, and then like I was talking about earlier about resources, everything that you need for Pathfinder is free on the internet and pretty easy things to use, like Path Builder, Archives of Nethys, Wanderer's Guide. Like they're just there. That you click drop down boxes and stuff like that. Pick what you want, go level by level, make it real easy to understand what you can do at what level, what you can't do, and what you can build towards. And so it's kind of like, creating a character in an MMO where you kind of know what your things are, and it seemed really easy once we figured it out, and it's been so much fun. Like after going to 2E, we still had a campaign that was in 5E, and it just seemed so dull. It was just your turn, attack, your turn, move, attack, your turn. It just didn't hit as hard. And since we've been going to just straight 2E, it's been awesome. Doing the arena fights and the PvP stuff was really, really cool too. Because, yeah, I'm sure you can build a really overpowered thing, but so far, like all our the matches that we've done have been pretty even, or at least fun. And then even when our GM was testing things out and having us fight these things with ridiculous modifiers, if we played it right and we did the right things, we overcome that, and that felt a lot better than just basically steamrolling over stuff because we're so strong.
And like that's another big thing between PF2E and 5E, if in my opinion, lethality. In 5E, once you hit level 5, you just don't have to worry about death anymore. It's just not. It's just a non-issue. Because if you have a cleric or anyone who gets access to Revivify, as long as they get to you within a minute and they have the gold to spend on it, which you more than likely will, at that point, then you just don't die. Besides that, most enemies can't really do enough to you to put you down that far. Especially since clerics also get a bonus action healing spell that could just pick someone up. Whereas in Pathfinder, the only way to revive someone who has died is through a ritual that is fairly high level to begin with, and also it's insanely expensive materials wise to complete the ritual, especially the higher level target you're trying to revive. Not only that, not only just death, dying in Pathfinder, the rules are specifically if you go down, you get the dying condition. If you are picked back up in combat, you get back up, but you are now wounded. And if you get dropped again, your dying condition increases by a value equal to your wounded condition. So if you die, if you get knocked down, get picked up, get knocked down again, and that happens to you 4 times, well, you're just dead. No recovery checks required. You just die. So you can't be putting yourself in situations where you just go down, get back up, go down, get back up. Whereas in 5e, you can do that infinitely with no punishment whatsoever.
Just don't get knocked down, forehead.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I make it sound like that's a bad thing, the way I talk about it. But no, that for us, that is a good thing, because one of our issues with 5e was that there was no danger. Unless the GM threw something at us that was well, if you get killed by this thing, your soul is destroyed, right? That was the only way to prevent someone from being rezzed. So that was the only way to threaten us past a certain point. Whereas in PF2E, well, death is just always on the table. Mm-hmm. And that makes us play smarter and play more carefully. And I like that in a tactical RPG, personally.
So I'm going to take that as your reason to try PF2E. How about you, Rack? What's something that you think you might tell the people watching that might reason why they might like to try it or why they should play it?
That is a tough question. And my answer is, if you like to meme and dream, this is for you. Because me personally, I still I enjoyed both. And right now, for 2e, if you're looking for a little bit more like variation in a spellcaster, this is just my opinion, granted, 2e is definitely the way to go. It does have a little bit more of a robust magic system in my mind, even though it's similar, but there's just the variety of spells. That's just me.
All right, Ro, your 2 cents.
I would say very similar again. Is just like if you're looking for like a really robust character, and also just like you want that character to do robust things, like Pathfinder has rules for a lot more world building stuff than it looked like 5e did. Because it, when I was playing in the 5e campaign, when we were doing the 5e stuff, our GM had homebrewed a lot of these systems for our characters to be making these world impacts. And again, we're players who like, we like to know the logistics of our followers and our strongholds and our things like that. And Pathfinder just has that stuff. So if you're looking for more of just like a robust system with like, I think a lot more like player agency and player choice, especially when it comes to like character builds and class builds and variant rules, Pathfinder I think is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, because in 5e, I think when you make a character, you're done making selections for your character for the most part after level 3. There's very few things that you get to select for on your character aside from, I think the only thing for most classes past that point is ASIs.
ASIs or feats.
Yeah, ability score increases or feats. Whereas, and that was like every 5 levels, or sorry, every four-ish levels, depending on the class. Whereas in PF2E, it's you're making a meaningful decision for your character every single level, or just about it. For us, it's every single level because we play with dual class, free archetype, and ancestry paragon. But if you're not playing with ancestry paragon, some of your odd levels you won't make a decision. But I mean that's fine too. You're still making very impactful decisions. Every other level at the very least in Pathfinder, whereas in 5e it's just you're not.
And
like a whole enchilada, you know what I mean?
Before I go to Xander, you just brought up something that came to my mind. One of the things that I think is awesome in Pathfinder is the balance. Whether you're playing with just the base rules or you're playing the variant rules, the enemies that you set up. It's really balanced. In the little bit that I tried doing stuff in 5e, the what do you call it, the challenger rating,
The challenge
rating?
Yeah.
That stuff was just so off sometimes, and it was either way too powerful or not enough. And especially for someone who was new or didn't understand, like, it was just really confusing. Well, in 2e, like, it's super simple. You can make encounters really extreme. What a moderate encounter, when you build it, is moderate. No matter what rule set you're using. Like we've we're variant rules. We use dual class and free archetypes. So by doing that, we have a crap ton of customization for our characters, but that also does make our characters stronger because they get more passives and stuff like that because they're running 2 classes. But even with that, due to the weak and the elite settings for monsters and levels and everything like that, it's really easy to make an encounter that is moderate for that group, and that does, like, if you're doing it right, which is it's very easy to do.
Not to mention, if you're using virtual tabletops, like we use Foundry VTT, the actual monster stat block sheet in the VTT has a weak and a strong button, or elite button. So mid-combat, you can just be like, all right, well, this combat's going a little quicker than I intended. The party's kind of steamrolling it. Well, I can just make a couple of these, just click the elite button, and the monster gets a little bit stronger. The players don't know anything about it, and you're just able to tune a fight on the fly.
Yes.
Yeah.
The classic fudging from the GM.
Well, and then on that as well, say that there's you're building a campaign and there's a certain monster that you think is awesome for this particular section, right? And it's a level 15 monster, and your party members that are playing, they're only like level 7. There's rules and a sheet to sit there and downgrade that level 15 monster to be balanced for that fight. So you don't have to just stick to, okay, let me look at the level 15 characters or anything like that. You have the whole entire book available to you. You just got to do a couple adjustments, and like once you've done it once or twice, like it's like, again, super simple and really fun. And we've even been we've used third party, if anyone's heard of it, the Battle Zoo Bestiary. They got it for 5e and for 2e, and those monsters in there are really cool. And we can pick any one of those, do the adjustments, and they can be a monster at any level. I think that's really cool, and it helps DMs with encounter building, and then it also helps players because as long as the DM is doing it right, the players have a good, challenging, fun, diverse combat system. It's not just this skeleton and this skeleton and this skeleton over and over again. You can play with it a lot. Xander, what do you think will get people hyped for 2e, or why they should try it?
So, one of my biggest things with 5e was that there are a lot of question marks when you're doing stuff in 5e. Like, the easiest description is anything in the item shop kind of thing has like a gold range. This is worth between 50 to 250 gold or something. It's like, right, which I get they do that so that I guess you can kind of, the DM can adjust for the pricing of things. But personally for me, I actually liked the fact that PF2E has very straightforward pricing for items. If you can be super creative with coming up with like an answer to a situation, while in 5e you'd have to ask the DMs like, oh hey, I want to try and do this. Like, I would like to grab my familiar that flies and use it like a paraglider over the side of this cliff, which one of Ginger's characters has done something like that in 5e, and there is no rule for that in 5e. The DM just kind of goes, that's really cool. How do I want to implement that? He kind of makes it up on the fly. In Pathfinder2e, there is a rule for that. Is basically the mantra of that entire system. There's so many rules. Yes, it is very daunting at first, but basically, if you can think of something, there is probably a rule for it, or at least a rule for something very, very similar, and it's very clear cut on what you need to roll or what you need to do in order to take this action, right? Like, for example, jumping off a cliff using a familiar as a paraglider. Well, there's a rule for like grab an edge kind of thing, or like, are you quick enough to actually grab your thing as you jump off this cliff? There is a leap action to see, can you even jump far enough to reach your familiar as it's going off this cliff, etc., right? Like, there are actions built into the system itself that make all of this very, very logical and very easy to figure out. Do you succeed or not? And it's less so much of the DM just kind of going like, well, this is cool, roll me a d20 and we'll flip a coin and pray to the gods that maybe you make it, like.
Yeah. And
Stuff
at
like
the
that.
same time,
There's still some elements of that too.
it
Oh, yeah,
doesn't
of
have
course
to
there is.
be. It doesn't have to be rigid. Like there were, how many times did we play and we would do something, and then just for the hell of it, rules lawyer was going over some things and was like, "Oh, hey guys, you know that thing that we did? We actually can't do it that way." And then it's like, "Oh, okay. Well, we just won't do that."
Yeah, we'll just remember that for next time.
And then
Like,
the GM always has that option of, nah, I like that. That's cool. You can do that, even if the
And-
Rule
rules,
of cool.
And
exactly.
even in the game mastery guide for PF2e, like one thing that they stress throughout that book is ultimately everything is the GM's call. So the GM can very well take the liberty of saying, okay, well, I'm going to override this rule in this situation, and we're going to do it this way instead. So like that is a thing in the system. There's a rule for everything. There's a baseline for everything, or almost everything, in Pathfinder. Something for the GM to go off of, so that when they do want to make those spur of the moment calls, well, they can be like, all right, well, um, we're gonna do it this way. I want you to give me this roll, and I'm gonna pull a standard DC for your level for you to roll against, and if you succeed, then great, you do the thing. And speaking of that, though, is I think there's literally one thing that we've wanted to do in almost a year of playing Pathfinder2e, where we've come across that there wasn't a rule for it, and that's forced movement while grabbing someone. We had a combat encounter where our barbarian fighter, Savage's character, wanted to grab a zombie that was weak to salt water and throw it in some salt water.
just give it a saltwater swirly, you know.
Yeah, just give it a saltwater swirly.
What a bully!
And there's actually there's actually no rule that we could find pertaining to grabbing someone and throwing them, like basically force movement them into some water. Yeah, I would argue you could do something like that with like a grab action and then a shove action potentially. Um,
Or a grab and a trip, or, you
or
know, it
grab
kind of
and a trip.
depends
Yeah,
on where
ended
you
up
want to put them.
Yeah, we basically ended up just making a spur of the moment call though, but we had a baseline in the rules where we could just be like, okay, well this makes sense with the rules to do it this way. And it didn't feel like it didn't feel burdensome as it can sometimes get in 5e when it's just like players like, I want to do this thing. It was like, well, like, give me this kind of role, I guess.
Let me go Google just how much water that actually is, so I can try and come up with a number for how much bludgeoning damage you're going to do in a second here.
Yeah. So,
Alrighty, well, I think we went over just about everything we wanted to go over. I hope.
sit here and talk for hours. About
Yeah, we
this.
can. I hope everyone was entertained and interested by our conversation. If you agree, disagree, let us know down in the comments. Give us a like, subscribe.
Comment,
if you guys are
subscribe. You know the memes.
Yep, all that YouTube
Hit that
stuff.
little alarm bell. Just
And hey, if you guys got any questions, we are eager to answer and talk to people. We just really like 2E, and we would like to get more people interested to try it out, and have a lot of fun with it. Anything else from any of you guys?
Yeah, I miss Muscle Wizard from 5e. That's it.
Muscle Wizard.
Need yourself some nerd range, Rick?
No, yes, always.
You just gotta get the belt of strength, and you're good.
Well, that's part of it. But I digress. But no, Pathfinder2e is fun. I enjoy it. I love the memes.
Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day, and we'll see you next Saturday.